Well, Collins Nweke is an African Affairs Analyst joining us live now from Brussels. Senegalese voters have tended to confirm their presidential choice during parliamentary elections. Do you predict that will happen this time, Collins?
Thank you, Charlotte, for having me. Well, it is very difficult to, predict what is going to happen. Historically, indeed, like you mentioned, Charlotte, Senegalese voters would reconfirm the mandate of a president. But there are many odds that are on the side of current government. Now, for a start, they have had now to deal with two very strong heavyweights, that actually came to life as a consequence of coalition. Some have labeled it coalition of desperados. Now, that is a strong force. Now, secondly, you also have to consider that the young people are very, very impatient. Now, they don't want to hear the fact that it's just 6 months into the previous election when the parliament was dissolved. They will expect a situation where from day 1 to day 2, they will begin to get job and their prospect for life will be better. Of course, it doesn't work that way, but then it may be that they use the opportunity of the election to actually sanction the ruling parliament. Now, party. Is that likely? No, that is not very likely, but it remains, a possibility. So, expectedly, an outright majority is likely to be won by the president's party, PASTEF.
Okay. And the President, Diomaye Faye, said the reason for the snap elections was to give him control of Parliament, which he said was blocking his reforms and preventing him from improving the life that, as you say, young people are impatient to see. To what extent is that true, that Parliament was blocking him? And to what extent is it the case that his government and his policies just weren't that effective?
Well, it is obvious that the job of the opposition is to oppose. And so what the opposition has done since, March, when he won the presidency, is to make life not only difficult, but impossible for him in terms of, achieving his objectives. So there is absolutely no doubt about the fact that they are very much, prone to keeping the old order, whereas Faye is actually desirous to, fundamentally and radically changing, the Senegalese politics. So, you see, it is the difference between the two is day and night. So, to a very, very large extent, yes, it's right, but is it totally unexpected that, they will block the reforms that is bringing to the table? No, it is not expected, but I think it's a very, very well calculated, political move to have dissolved Parliament and then take his message again to the Senegalese voters.
And talk to me a little bit more briefly, though, about the economic and debt crisis in Senegal. What's behind it? How bad is it? And how much of a challenge will it be going forward for the president?
Well, the problem is that Senegal has one of the largest, one of the biggest unemployment rate, particularly amongst the youth, amongst young people. That's number one. Number two, the endemic corruption, was really a scratch on the surface in terms of what they had. And so when he took over power, they discovered indeed that it was so very deep and the economic woes were much more than they knew. As a matter of fact, as of this particular moment, 1.9 billion US dollars that the World Bank had voted for the country to use in human development projects have had to be stalled because they are conducting a thorough audit of the situation. So when that audit is done and when they get the mandate, when they have their mandate renewed by majority in Parliament, it is expected that they will deploy some of these assets, some of these resources that are waiting to be able to realize some of their goals. But they just couldn't do that before a new parliament is installed.
Okay, Collins Nweke from Brussels, thank you so much for joining us on TRT World.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.